Hello to all, welcome back to VHS e-learning classes. Today we are going to discuss about recurrent abortion. So first we'll discuss about the definition of recurrent abortion. So it is a three or more consecutive, three or more than three consecutive spontaneous abortion in the mother. Spontaneous abortion in the mother before 20 weeks of gestation. That is called as the recurrent miscarriage. More than three, there is in continuation three or more than three number of spontaneous abortion are occurring in a female. That is called as a recurrent miscarriage. And recurrent miscarriage are of two types. First is a primary and second one is the secondary. So primary is that one in which there is continuously spontaneous abortion spontaneous abortion are happening, and whereas the secondary in which there is a one live fetus, one live birth is there, and after that the abortion is happening. So clear what is recurrent abortion? So there is one, we can say that according to the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology, so that society used to say that instead of using the word recurrent abortion, we can say it as recurrent pregnancy loss, and it includes two or more pregnancy losses. Instead of saying it as recurrent miscarriage, we can say that it as recurrent pregnancy loss. Okay, now moving ahead about the etiology. So etiology for the recurrent miscarriages, like we had discussed earlier also, like in the first trimester, the major causes for the abortion is a chromosomal abnormality. So 50% of, we know that 50% of abortion in first trimester is due to chromosomal abnormality, and which includes the aneuploidy. And if you remember that we had discussed in very detail in our last lecture, like which include both trisomy and the monosomy. And under the trisomy 16 is very common, and under the monosomy X, or which is called as the Turner syndrome, is common. So in the first trimester, causes for the recurrent is, first is the fetal chromosomal abnormality, then is the endocrine defect. Like due to there is a decreased progesterone. Why is there is a decreased progesterone? Maybe due to the luteal phase defect, there is a decreased corpus luteum. We know that the earlier corpus luteum used to produce the progesterone. Progesterone is a pregnancy maintaining hormone, we all know that. So maybe due to decreased progesterone, and it may be due to any kind of endocrine disorders, like the diabetes in the mother, like there is a thyroid disorders. So all this is going to affect the consequence of our pregnancy. And then is the infection. Under infection, torch infection is most commonly responsible for the miscarriage. So that's why usually in the routine test we used to perform the rubella titer. We used to check the values of all these. We can say that the titer of the rubella helps to diagnose the reason for the recurrent miscarriage. And another cause is the immune factors, like the APLA syndrome. What is APLA syndrome? It is a antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, which is called as the APLA syndrome. So basically the APLA syndrome, it is the most common, and remember, it is the most common and most treatable cause of the recurrent miscarriage. APLA is a autoimmune disease. Remember, it is an autoimmune disease, plus APLA is a acquired thrombophilia. So basically this APLA antibodies, this antiphospholipid antibodies are present in the maternal serum, which leads to the recurrent miscarriage. So if if this APLA, anti-phospholipid antibodies are present in the mother, it will lead to what kind of consequences? Like, see, Rajay, we all know that the phospholipids are present in the cell membrane. All of the cell body contains the phospholipid. So these anti-phospholipid antibody, they act against these lipids. So they act against these lipids. So usually what happens in some cases, they work against, its first phenomena is they work against the platelets. So like it will bind to platelets, and when it will bind to platelet, it will lead to what? It will lead to the thrombosis. So this thrombosis can occur anywhere, either in the arteries, either in the arterial circulation, it can happen in the veins, and either it can happen in the placenta. So which will ultimately lead to the miscarriage. So the first phenomenon of this APLA syndrome is this, it will lead to the thrombosis. And another phenomenon of this APLA syndrome is this anti-phospholipid antibody also act against the epithelial cell. Epithelial cells, what are epithelial cells? These are the cells which are covering our blood vessels. So here it will cause the endothelial damage, which will lead to the vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction, अगर बच्चे को कम blood supply जाएगी, ultimately it will lead to the death of the fetus. And another is this APLA syndrome. In the APLA syndrome, this APLA antibodies, it will work against the trophoblast. And when it will work against the trophoblast, so it will inhibit the trophoblast invasion. So this is the immunological factor responsible for the abortion in the mother. Then the second trimester causes, under the second trimester causes are uterine causes, like either the structural defect, either the anatomical defect. So under the structural defect, like if there is a bicornuate uterus, and we can say that if the implantation happens at this place, so it will lead to the less space for implantation. And if suppose there is a septate uterus, like this is there is septate here present, and if the implantation is there, this we all know that this septate is, it is basically fibrosis and scar is there, and when there is a scar, it will not lead to the successful pregnancy. And apart from this septate uterus, if there is any kind of scar in the uterus, which is called as the Asherman syndrome, so it will also not lead to the successful pregnancy. And apart from this, if there is any kind of the uterine fibroid, and remember that the submucosal fibroid have the most poor prognosis. So this in the second trimester, so our reasons is the first are the uterine causes. So remember that when there is an increase in number of miscarriages, then maternal causes are more responsible than the fetal causes. So as there is increase in number, so we need to think that there must be some abnormality in the mother rather than thinking about the fetus. So another second trimester reason, which is a maternal factor called as a cervical insufficiency, which is also known as cervical incompetency. Earlier we used the words incompetent cervix or the cervical incompetency, but now the word used is cervical insufficiency. So what is cervical insufficiency? As from the name, so cervical insufficiency is, it is a painless dilatation of cervix. Very important word, painless dilatation of cervix in second or third trimesters. So when there is dilatation of cervix, it will lead to the ballooning of amniotic fluid amniotic fluid into vagina, which will lead to rupture of membrane, and ultimately it will lead to the expulsion of fetus. So in very simple term, what is cervical? This usually happens around 14 to 20 weeks of gestation. So what is this cervical insufficiency? We say that the cervix is not competent enough to hold the fetus. So when there is an increase in the weight of the fetus, slowly it will get open. So cervix is not competent enough, or we can say that cervical insufficiency, it is a weakening of the cervix, which will lead to the dilatation of cervix. And remember that very important aspect here is painless cervical dilatation. Okay, painless cervical dilatation. Now there is a painless cervical dilatation which leads to the spontaneous expulsion of fetus. So remember that with an increase in number of miscarriage, then there is a decrease in weeks of gestation. So what here I want to say that, like in the first pregnancy, the abortion occurred at, say that, 30 weeks. Like in the second pregnancy, then abortion will happen at 26 weeks, and in the third pregnancy, abortion will happen at the 20 weeks. So with the increase in the number, there is a decrease in the weeks of the gestation. So apart from this, remember that this cervical insufficiency, like we are going to discuss about the etiology of this cervical insufficiency. So this cervical insufficiency can be congenital or acquired. Congenital matlab by birth there is a weakness of the cervical muscles. There is a weakness of the cervical tissues which is present by the birth. Like in condition of septate uterus is there is any kind of congenital abnormality of uterus. And another one is acquired. Acquired, it may be due to the history of any kind of forcible dilatation and curettage, koi pichli any kind of previous cervical surgery is there, and due to any kind of previous conization. So any kind of surgical procedure which lead to the tear of this cervix. So that comes under the acquired reason. So like simply, what is cervical incompetency? So see, we can say that, so this is our normal cervix with internal os is closed. Like so in case of a cervical incompetency, initially what will happen? Initially there is like this. There is a Y shape of the cervix. This internal os is getting little open, and eventually with the increase in the weeks of gestation, it becomes a V shape. मतलब इसकी और ज़्यादा opening हो रही है. And then finally what it will lead? It will lead to the dilatation. So this our cervix as opened. So it will lead to the dilatation of the cervix. So this is the phenomena behind this our cervical incompetency. Now let's moving ahead. Let's discuss about the investigation. So under the investigation, we need to take the proper history. We need to ask that when the last abortion was happened. So at what time period, like whether there was any kind of history in the mother or in her sister, and then we can also perform the ultrasonography. Ultrasonography, it is a kind of a definitive test which we can perform to diagnose it. So this ultrasonography, it can be performed either transvaginally and transabdominally, but transvaginal is considered more superior as comparison to the transabdominal. So in transvaginal ultrasonography is considered more superior as comparison to the transabdominal. In the transvaginal ultrasonography, what we measure the cervical length, and also you can see here in the diagram, this is our normal cervix, and this is a funnel shaped cervix, like there is an opening of the internal os. So funnel shaped cervix happened in case of the cervical incompetency. So if with the transvaginal ultrasonography, we measure the cervical length and we also assess the funneling of the cervix. And if the cervical length is less than 25 mm, so it will lead to the diagnosis of the incompetent cervix. And similarly for a transabdominal, we need the full bladder, but there is some, we can say that some negative point of this transabdominal, like as the bladder is full, so which may lead to the lengthening of the cervix and the internal os may appear closed. So that's why the transvaginal is considered more superior as comparison to transabdominal. And there is one another, that is revised Sapero criteria for the antiphospholipid. So it says as if there is if any of the following, one lab criteria and one clinical criteria is present, so it may lead to the diagnosis of our recurrent miscarriage. And from the clinical criteria, like if there is any kind of arterial or venous thrombosis is there, and if there is a more than equal to 3 losses in less than 10 weeks of gestation, and there is any kind of preterm delivery. And under the lab criteria, there is a presence of the lupus anticoagulant antibody, there is a presence of IgM or IgG anticoagulant antibody, or presence of the anti-B glycoprotein. Basically, glycoprotein is a beta glycoprotein is a healthy protein which is required, but when the antigen is going, antibodies are formed against it, so it will lead to the serious consequences. If any of these two conditions are present, so it may lead to the diagnosis of the antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. Now moving ahead, management of recurrent miscarriage, how we are going to manage it. So first and most important is a psychological support. Yes, if the abortion are happening again and again, it will disturb the mother emotionally. Then we need to do the early pregnancy scan, like we had discussed earlier also. If the pregnancy, so there is a 12 to 15% of chances of miscarriage in the first trimester, but once the pregnancy crosses 16 weeks, so there is only 1% chance of the miscarriage. So early pregnancy scan is required, and of course rest is required. Advise a mother not to do any kind of the heavy activity, and so when traveling is usually avoided. And progesterone, when the pregnancy is confirmed, the fetal cardiac movement is confirmed, progesterone 100 mg daily is prescribed as a vaginal suppository, and folic acid is also prescribed to prevent the neural tube defects. And treatment for the antiphospholipid antibody syndrome is for up to the, we need to continue this treatment up to 34 weeks. So in this condition, low dose aspirin, that is 50 mg per day, and heparin 5000 units subcutaneously twice a day is prescribed. And also diagnosis the chromosomal abnormality. We can diagnose the chromosomal abnormality by either through the chorionic villus sampling or either by the amniocentesis. And in case of the inherited thrombophilia, we need to prescribe the mother heparin, and this is given up to the 34 weeks. So this was the during pregnancy medical management. And then is the surgical management. So surgical management is, there is cervical cerclage operation. So what is it? It is a surgical operation. It is a surgical operation done in pregnancy in order to close the mouth of the cervix, and it in order to close the neck of the cervix, which is called as cervical cerclage operation. So this cervical cerclage operation are indicated as per 3 conditions. So first condition is like if there is more than 3 pregnancy losses there, so then we will do this cervical cerclage operation. So this is basically, it is a history induced cerclage. So its indication is history induced cerclage, which is usually performed at 12 to 14 weeks of gestation. And if there is 2, or we can say that if there is a 2 pregnancy loss, like more than 2 pregnancy loss is there, and we need to keep in mind that already there are 2 miscarriage has happened, so we need to keep in mind that maybe there is some further subsequent miscarriage. So in that condition, we will monitor the cervical length by the ultrasonography. So if there is a cervical length less than 25 mm, then we go for cervical circulage operation. So it is called as the ultrasound indicated circulage. And then third is, if there is a history of bad obstetrical history is there, like it is a kind of a emergent circulage, like mother came to us, there was a dilatation of cervix, the blood was coming out. So in that condition, in emergency, we are performing this procedure. And this we can say that our ultrasonography indicated circulage we usually perform from 14 to 24 weeks of gestation. Now moving ahead, methods of this cervical circulage. There are 2 methods of cervical circulage. First is the McDonald's method and second is the Shirodkar method. McDonald method, it is more common than the Shirodkar. So what happens in the McDonald procedure? We usually place a mother in the lithotomy position and her vagina is exposed with the same speculum, and then the lip of the cervix is held with the sponge holding forceps. Then a purse string suture is usually applied. So purse string this is going to placed around the cervix, as you can see here in the diagram, that like this we are starting from here, like in this manner it is going, and then again. So like this we are closing the mouth of the cervix, and this suture is going to tie either at the anteriorly or on the posteriorly side. And when this suture is tied, usually we tie this suture on the anteriorly because it will lead to the more easy opening. And whereas in the Shirodkar, there is one difference, is that in the McDonald procedure, we use the suture material, and in this case, we use the tape. So the tape is placed around the cervix so that it will hold the fetus inside and will lead to the successful pregnancy. And then we are going to opening of this suture. This suture will going to open the suture at 37 weeks of gestation, or the if labor start early, we will open it early also. So whatever is the earlier, we will do accordingly. And there is one post-operative care after this suture is like, we need to start the progesterone to the mother. Then the antibiotic is also started, and advise the mother to rest for 48 hours, then ambulate slowly. So with this, our with this our recurrent miscarriage topics finished. Thank you so much.